Okay, next is the Finance Committee report.
This is Board Member Earl. Can I make just a quick comment?
Yes.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate all that worked on that item. I know that was a exhaustive, it was a long day, and it was very well. I just think we worked well together, and I appreciate everybody's thoughtfulness in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Belknap.
Thank you, Brittany. I actually like the little noise in the background. It makes me feel quite happy. Okay. Oh, geez. Yeah, I had to move to a bedroom because I've got grands out there making it. So, finance meeting of October 2nd, 2020. Item number 13.4, Board Policy 1001, Board Internal Policy Making Authority and Process Amendment. The motion for the board is the committee moves that board approve R277445. Oh, hold on. I skipped one.
You scare me. I'm lost.
Hold on. I went from, okay. The committee moves that the board approve Board Policy 1001, Draft 1.
Okay, the motion for the board is that the board approve Board Policy 1001, Draft 1. Is there any discussion to that motion? I see none. Please vote. Board Member Davis, Board Member Cannon. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, 13.5, Board Policies 1003, 1005, 3003, 3004, 3005. The repeals. The committee moves that all of those repeal Board Policies 1003, 1005, 3003, 3004, and 3005.
Okay. The motion is that the board repeal Board Policies 1003, 1005, 3003, 3004, and 3005. Is there any discussion to that motion? Please don't make me repeat it. Okay, if I see none, please vote. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Now we're on to 13.6. R277445, classifying small schools as necessary existent amendments. The motion before the board is that committee moves that the board approve R277445, classifying small schools as necessarily existent, Draft 1 on second and final reading.
The motion is that the board, sorry, it just disappeared. The board approve R277445, classifying small schools as necessarily existent, Draft 1 on second and final reading. Any discussion to that motion? Board Member Hanson.
Just a question. I'm sorry I can't get my video to go right now. But a question for the chairman of the committee, or maybe for staff. I didn't notice that Weber School District was consulted. I know they do have one small school in Weber because it's just a few miles down the road from my house. I just wondered how that fit into this equation, or if they were considered.
Well, we can talk about it too. I know that there's other schools that have one NES school inside of their system. But Scott, do you have more clarification on this?
Hang on one second.
And I can clarify. I saw them on the maps in the materials. I saw the school that's near my home, but I didn't see any reference to them in the tabulated materials or the places where information was listed.
I think it was just the work group, Scott, that it wasn't that they weren't in the calculations. They just weren't part of the work group. Because, for example, Washington County School District has one there as well, but they have two NEST schools and they're not there.
Hey, Chair Cummins, Dale Frost has been an integral part of the work group, so can we see if he's online?
Yes, that'd be fine.
Yeah, I think Board Member Belknap's right, but let's check with Dale.
Chair, this is Dale Frost, Fiscal Policy Analyst. Can you see me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great.
Yep.
So, Member Scott Hansen, to answer your question, the main changes associated with this rule change have to do with a new program added to the NEST program called the Isolated Schools Program. And in statute, it specifically says that to qualify for this new Isolated Schools Program, you cannot have qualified for NEST under the other rules. The intention of the program is essentially to shore up some of these very isolated elementary schools in particular that have grown out of the thresholds or have more than 160 students. So there were two actions made in the rule change to identify these schools, and one is kind of a density measure. So those school districts that have the fewest students per square mile, or actually fewer than one student per square mile, can be qualified for this this program. And then they also have to be more than 25 miles away from a population center. And so that's why those 5 schools were identified, and the 748,000 was allocated amongst them. I don't know if that answers your question, but we consider every school, but we needed to create criteria to identify these isolated schools.
Okay, thank you. Maybe just a follow-up, Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that there was no effect on the necessarily existent small schools that weren't mentioned in the report, because I didn't see in those lists of all the schools, I didn't see Weber County called out, and didn't know if they had been considered and if there was any effect to them that I should look into.
Chair, may I answer that question?
Yes.
Great. Member Scott Hansen, there's no effect on any of the schools in the NEST program. And the list of schools were only for those districts within that category of the low density districts. So Weber wouldn't be on there. And we looked at all the schools within those, I think it's 12 districts, to see which of those schools would qualify. But this is coming from a separate allocation within the NEST program and doesn't impact any of the NEST schools that are already receiving funding.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I see no further questions. The motion is that the board approve R277445, classifying small schools as necessarily existent, draft 1 on second and final reading. Please vote. Okay, that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Chair. 13.7 R277626 Special Needs Scholarship Grant Program Amendment. Just for clarity, scholarship granting organization is referred to here often as the SGO. So if you hear that, it's the Scholarship Grant Organization. So the motion for the board is that the committee moves that the board approve R277-626 Special Needs Scholarship Grant Program Amendment Draft 2 on second and final reading. But I'd like a follow-up after, please.
The motion is that the board approve R277-626 Special Needs Scholarship Grant Program Amendment Draft 2 on second and final reading. Discussion to the motion, Board Member Belknap.
Thank you. We found that there was some problems with conflict of interest between our meeting and now, and it's been in your backup. Draft 3 has been there, which alleviates the conflict of interest that might occur with the SGO or the Scholarship Grant Organization. And I would like to make an amendment and that we do draft 3, please.
Okay. Before I accept your amendment, I'm going to ask for Lorraine if she's got something for us right here. Lorraine, go ahead.
Yes, just to clarify, the word amendment is not part of the title. That was just what was happening to the rules. So you just need to eliminate amendment from the motion.
Okay, thank you, Lorraine. So the motion, the amendment before us is to change draft 2 to draft 3. Is there any discussion to that motion? Board Member Davis.
Yeah, I'll speak in favor of this motion. As I studied this code as it was coming through, it was concerning to me that so much of the code was written about how USPE monitors the SGO, and then there are these fraud provisions written right into the code. And so my preference would be to seek legislation changing from an SGO to what we have the authority to do, which is to create a separate organization within our board. And I know we spoke to some legislators about that last year. I'd like to move forward. That's not an appropriate motion to make at this time, but I'm going to throw it in there anyway because the way this is written is strange. So I'll speak for the motion because it will at least help.
And I have to apologize. I think I did not ask for a second on that amendment. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, thank you. Since we've already talked about it, thanks. Okay, so the amendment, Board Member Davis, you have your hand up. Did you want to speak again to that?
No, sorry.
Okay, the amendment is that we change draft 2 to draft 3. Seeing no further discussion, please vote. That motion passes unanimously. So back to the main motion, which now reads that the motion is that the board approve R277626 Special Needs Scholarship Grant Program Draft 3 on second and final reading. Is there any discussion to that motion? I see none. Please vote. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your consideration there, everyone. Okay, 13.8 R277726 statewide online education amendments. The motion before the board is the committee moves that the board approve R277726 statewide online education program or SOAP program draft 3 on second and final reading.
The motion is that the board approve R277726 statewide online education program SOEP draft 3 on second and final reading. Any discussion to that motion? Board Member Lear.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to make an amendment to that motion that the board approve draft 4 on second and final reading, and the draft 4 is posted. And then I'd like to speak to that when the time is right.
Is there a second?
I'll second that, Jenny. Grab it.
The amendment is to change from draft 3 to draft 4. Any discussion to that motion? Board Member Lear?
Yes, and I've been working on this for a long time, and Laura has been patient, and as has the Finance Committee, but it is something that is, I think, really important to certain LEAs, and I think it is worth considering. The effect of the amendment to draft 4 instead of draft 3 would be to maintain the status quo in 2 ways. And if you've taken the time to read my rationale, I promise not to read every word, but let me just point out a couple of things. One of the things that would stay the same is the rule would be silent on who pays for the fee waivers for students who are fee waiver eligible. I'm told by Todd Hauber, who's the UASBO representative and the BA in Park City, that often LEAs split the costs because most LEAs have one-to-one devices, so they allow the students taking SOEP courses to use their device, and then sometimes the provider pays for the connectivity for a student who is on fee waiver if he needs it. Sometimes the LEA pays for that. So I think it should stay that way. It's a local control issue that then has the LEA and the provider working together. That's one of the changes. It would take out all of the language about when and if somebody, some entity pays for the fees. I think that the other aspect of this that I think that is in draft 4 is that the LEA, initially when this program was started, it was proposed to LEAs as students leaving the building. This would help class size. This would help your problems with students, your overcrowding, in a sense. And this was 8 years ago. We saw from our numbers today, we don't know that we have that problem anymore, but we do in some LEAs. And it additionally burdens some LEAs because they don't have a space or an individual to supervise those SOEP students. And so rather than now do a bait and switch on these school districts and LEAs that have students take SOEP classes, this would not require them. It would allow them, but not require them to supervise these students, have space for these students as the program originally started. I also want to say, just generally in terms of preserving the status quo of this rule, the program's recently been moved to teaching and learning, where Jennifer Thompson, I think, will do an excellent job in improving the quality of some of these courses. Some of them are excellent. Laura runs one that is an excellent program by all accounts. There are others that don't necessarily serve students as well. So I think that they putting this program totally under teaching and learning could really enhance the quality of the courses. But I think while we watch and see if the quality of the courses improve under all providers, that we should not further burden LEAs with the responsibilities that they were not given initially when this program started. And I think this is a local control issue that should stay with LEAs as a local control issue. And we should mean what we say when we trust LEAs. So those are the differences in draft 4. It just preserves the status quo. Thank you.
Board Member Earl?
Yes, my question, it may be something that Carol can answer, but I was curious, who did you say you spoke with that you felt like this was something they felt would be workable? Did you say you spoke with some entities?
I didn't say anything about workability. I spoke to Lexi Cunningham with the USBA, who wasn't terribly familiar with the program, but she did agree that LEAs don't need any more responsibilities right now or any more expenses. I also spoke with Todd Hauber, who is the BA, the business administrator in Park City. And Todd was more familiar with the program. And he said it was his understanding that usually the provider and the LEA shared, and I don't remember if he said usually or often, but that the general practice was that the LEA and the provider shared the cost of providing what the fee waiver eligible students needed.
Okay, so I guess the question, I don't know if there's staff that can answer it. Do we have a way or a method to know whether, if this is implemented, whether or not it's working? In other words, will students be able to access what they need to access with the suggested amendment? Does any staff have any recommendations or thoughts on that?
Jenny, can I answer that for just a minute? The draft 4 that Member Lear is talking about keeps it how it's been in the past. It doesn't change things that came out of committee. It doesn't. The recommendations by committee are taken out.
Okay. So I guess I'm trying to understand whether we're going to end up with abuses with the change. Is that why it was the changes were recommended in the first place? I guess I'm trying to.
Well, I'll answer the one that is probably the most glaring on here, Chair, if that's okay.
Yeah.
One is the fee waivered students and their ability to have access. And this was actually asked for by superintendents to have language that was clear and to make sure that there wasn't confusion on that any longer.
Well, and let me just add that other superintendents did not ask for this. So given that we have 41, I think there were some that maybe asked Laura for clarification. I talked to some who said, we don't need these extra responsibilities.
So Chair Cummins, is there staff that can, I'm just, because we're clearly in the middle of something here, right? There, some saying yes, some saying no. Do we have any concrete data as to the need here? That's what I'm wondering.
Board Member Earl, are you asking for, like, what are the consequences of going back or maintaining the status quo over the changes that are recommended by committee?
Yeah,
maybe that's what I'm asking, or is it, yeah.
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, I'm just trying to clarify, is that?
Well, I want to understand we changed it for a reason, but I wanted to know what the data is that suggests we changed it, or if that we have.
So just to clarify, we haven't changed it yet. We are considering recommendations for change from committee, and then the amendment is trying to remove those recommendations and kind of maintain the status quo of the original rule that's currently in place. And so
correct, right.
So I want to know the need.
Jenny, okay. I can speak to that because I've spoken to superintendents who said they feel
Board Member Lear, if you want to wait just a second, Board Member Earl was asking if there was a staff member who helped prepare this, if they had any input, and then we can get to your answer in just a second, if that's okay. Jennifer Thronson, are you prepared to speak to this?
Or Angie, who met with the superintendents?
Okay. Angie's not available today. She's got some family issues she had to deal with. I don't think I think she's still doing that. That were kind of emergencies.
Okay. Oh, yes, she does.
Jennifer, if you want to go ahead.
Sure. Jennifer Thompson, Director of Teaching and Learning. And so basically the difference is one requires the LEA to be the one responsible for providing the Wi-Fi and the device so the student can have access to the course. Where in the previous rule, it wasn't clear who was responsible. So that's the difference that you're looking at. And it seems as our locals do the work that they're supposed to do, they're giving kids access in the ways they need to. I think what Board Member Belknap is referring to is some have said it'd be nice if it was more clear in the rule. And then what Board Member Lee is sharing is that some have said we don't need that clarity. And so there's just kind of this mixed.
We don't really have numbers is what I'm saying, I guess, because I understand the difference. Okay, yeah. We don't have, okay, that's what
There's no data that I'm aware of that's driving this decision in terms of if we don't change the rule, kids won't have access.
Free and reduced kids we're talking about right now.
Just free.
Free and reduced kids right now.
Okay. Just free. Those eligible for fee waivers are just free lunch students.
Sid was at the meeting with the USSA.
Okay. Board Member Hanson, have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just wondering, maybe the question was just addressed partially. Is this just the free and reduced students who would need to be provided with access and provided with this supervision, place to sit, computers, Wi-Fi? Or I see a line in draft 3 that about 190 that talks about any student being provided with access. So that's question number 1. And then this supervision, would that have to be for, if there was one student who wanted to complete an online course during a certain period of the day, would we have to have a one-on-one supervisor for that student? And if 100 students wanted to take a certain online course during a certain period of the day, would we have to provide facilities for them to all sit and take that course? So I guess 2 questions. One about how that works, the supervision works, and then the other one about the non-free students and the free students who are eligible for waivers.
Chair, may I answer that? Okay.
Yes, sorry.
Okay. So Scott, when the first we were talking about the fee waivered students, and that is the school can either provide them a place at school to do their online course, or they can provide them a device and access to internet after hours away from school. So that's free and reduced. Then there is a line that talks about just students taking an online course having a place at the facility. Just for clarity, that the money that is set aside for the, or just not set aside, I'm not sure exactly the word, that's given to the statewide online education program for a course, 59% of it goes to the provider and 41% of it goes to the local school. So if they do have one, then they receive partial of that funding that could help look after that one student. And there is nothing that allows the state board to tell a district how to schedule themselves. So if a district school has, like you said, 100 kids, they could say everyone who's taking online will take it first period. They don't have to spread it out the day. They're in charge of how that happens.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Can I clarify further,
Hold on,
Brittany, too?
Please wait just a second and we'll get to that.
I will.
Okay, and so yes, there does need to be supervision, or however they do that in their school. And then Scott, did I answer both of those questions as to draft 3?
Yeah, I think I understand better now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board Member Lear.
Thank you. And I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just thinking we were talking about draft 4. Draft 4 and draft 3 both, fee waiver eligible students are only those who qualify for free school lunch. So it's a much smaller number. Let's be clear about that. It's not free and reduced. Those are the students who, right now, as the rule stands, and as I would have it stay in draft 4, schools would work with providers, and the students who are eligible for free school lunch would probably share the responsibility for covering those fees, because most LEAs have one-to-one devices. And the question, Scott, about supervision in draft 4, there is a concern from superintendents I have talked to about supervising even one. And keep in mind, these courses can be accessed by students in grades 7 through 12. So there are concerns from some superintendents about adequately supervising those students. And one would have to be supervised, maybe not with a one-to-one aid, but there'd have to be a place for that student. And it would also be true if there are 50 students in the school taking SOEP courses. So supervision was a concern for superintendents that I discussed this with.
Board Member Nielsen?
Oh, I'm sorry. Could I follow up, please, Chair?
Oh, go ahead. Let Scott Hansen follow up.
Just one more quick one. So this supervisor, could this be a paraprofessional, or does this need to be, I understand they need to be supervised, is that right? So what are the qualifications of the supervisor? What are we talking about as far as outlay of money?
It can be a paraprofessional.
Okay. Board Member Nielsen?
Yeah, no, I as Laura previously mentioned, I want to reiterate to the board that just the LEAs can decide, they can schedule this. And they can also use some of their paraprofessionals in this. We have one in my school where it is the lady who runs the library, and students can come in and take a course online and have that supervision. So I don't feel like it's something that's going to be an undue burden for LEAs. That's all.
Board Member Newell?
When we discuss this, I think about having a place where students can come and know that they can get their work done. And I think this is very important for them to have a space. I think they can provide somebody to monitor this. It's not like it's going to take, an act of Congress, and all day. But I think it's really imperative that we have this space available, because not every student has access to all the necessities to complete their education when they're working online.
Thank you. Board Member Bolter.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo what Board Member Newell said. I know one of the thoughts, at least going through my mind, was how can we remove a barrier for students who otherwise would like to take or do this program, but feel that they can't because due to lack of access. And in reviewing and discussing this as a finance committee, I think we've come up with a good plan to provide more access to students, and also giving the districts funding to be able to do this. So.
Thank you. Board Member Davis.
Thank you. I think that one of the questions here is scope, and how do we see this eventually? How do we see this when the 1% numbers in the column of the data change? Could they change to 2%, 3%, 4%? I visited with a high school principal, and he went and walked over to his registrar's office while we were visiting, and he said, I have 10 students in SOEP. He said, this is no problem. He's like, 5 of them are earning credits, but 5 of them aren't doing a darn thing. And he said, if all 10 of those would start earning credits toward graduation, I am on board. I'll find a place for them. I'll supervise them. I'll do whatever it takes. Because they had a sort of influx to online last term and had more Fs than they've ever had in the past, and they're trying to figure out what to do now. But he was like, I can't even believe the board is considering a rule on this. It's ridiculous. If a kid comes and says, I need a place to do my work, every principal that I know is going to support him and give them a place they need to do their work. But the issue was then when 10 turns into 50 and 50 turns into 100. And then he says, yet that is when there is a problem. What is the long-term vision here? And what we vote on today becomes tomorrow. And so I think that's a question just for advocates. What is the long-term vision there? And then I know we keep saying there's a 40% give back, but I can't find anyone that agrees with that 40%. And maybe it's a data issue. I don't know, because the variable is a moving target, because the courses cost different amounts of money and the registrations fluctuate, and there's an average of 3.5 courses taken. So the superintendent that I talked to said they think they're being oversold on the 40%. And he said, it's frustrating and frustrating that these things, they never go without costs. And they, in his estimation, is not going to have funding to meet the eventual costs. And he said, people can make a policy and think you can put a student in a lab with a supervisor, but he said it just never works that way. There's more thought to go around with it. And he said he supports choice, but at what point do we take the long view and try to figure out what does this mean? And maybe we need to clarify this in the language of the rule. I would support these amendments and stay status quo, but I anticipate this coming back because I think online is here to stay. And I think looking at our current trajectories with COVID, I think it's, we need to figure out ways that this fits in with our system. And I was thinking about this last night, and the word ecosystem kept coming to my mind. And the thing that's been the most sad to me about all the conversations I've heard through this system is that if LEAs express concern and frustration, I had one superintendent said he feels like we're now becoming the federal government to them because we just keep piling things on them. So they shouldn't be seen as not being kid-centric. They want to help kids now that need a place to be, but are concerned about the long view. We should listen and we should create specificity in our rule or in our vision or whatever. And then the flip side of that is that, we shouldn't be made to be, not caring about schools. We spend our whole summer trying to deregulate and do things like that. And I feel like there's kind of some pigeonholing going on, but I would support staying status quo now or moving this back to committee. But I think it's fair that folks have concerns.
Chair Huntsman?
Yes, I'm one that was part of moving this out of committee, and through the whole process in that, there wasn't any opposition at all in draft 3 coming from USBA, the Superintendent Association, from UASBO, and it's a proposed betterment in draft 3. I'm just, and I haven't heard from some of these individual superintendents that are usually pretty vocal in anything that we have going on, and so I just want to remind the board that quite a bit of time was spent on committee on this proposed draft, and again, the opportunity for these organizations were there to speak against or to bring additional betterments forward, and it didn't happen.
Board Member Nielsen?
Yeah, I would like to go back to draft 3, but regarding draft 4, Carol's, I moved the previous question.
Okay, so the motion is to end debate on the amendment, which is to replace draft 3 with draft 4. So,
do I have an opportunity to speak to that, Brittany, before we vote to end debate?
so is there a second to the motion to end debate?
Second.
Okay. Lorraine, sorry, remind me, I don't think it's a debatable motion. Is that correct? End debate?
I'm just checking. It is not.
Okay. Sorry. So the motion before us is to end debate. Please vote.
Oops.
Okay, that motion passes. Then 12-2. So please don't take your vote down yet. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I can't. My finger's stuttering.
Okay.
I just need to know the no's and then if someone is absent.
Yeah. So the 2 no's are Board Member Hanson and Davis, and I will try and see who's absent. If you're not here, please raise your hand. 14.
Is it Member Marsh? Is Member Marsh here?
Oh, you're right. It's Member Marsh. She's not here. Thank you. Okay, so that motion to end debate passes. So the motion before us is to replace draft 3 with draft 4. Please.
Now can I have a final word on that?
Sorry, no, debate has been ended, and so now we just take the vote.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case.
So please vote.
Can you isn't the motion to replace 3
Yeah,
with?
so yes. So this is the amendment to replace draft 3 with draft 4. Please vote. Well, Lorraine, Expert, what do we do if there's a tie? Because we only have 14 people present. So that just fails, right? Because we don't have 8 votes. Is that correct?
Yeah, you have to have 8.
Okay. So that motion fails. The amendment fails.
I'll need to know the ayes and the no.
Yep, thank you. Okay, so the noes are board members Cummins, Belknap, Nielsen, Earl, Newell, Huntsman, Bolter. The ayes, Lear, Hanson, Thorpe, Gravitt, Cannon, Davis, sorry, just moved, and Haynes. Is that everything you need, Lorraine?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we're back to the main motion, which is that the board approve R277-726 statewide online education program draft 3 on second and final reading. Is there any discussion to that motion? Okay, board member Lear.
Thank you. I would just then oppose draft 3 and ask that we have more discussion. This has never been, the program in 8 years has never been as extensively evaluated as the law requires. Jennifer Thompson, and I won't make her speak again or take that time, but she has expressed concerns to me about the quality of some of these programs. So I think rather than perpetuating a program that is not fully evaluated, that we should continue the status quo and look to have that fully evaluated before we further burden LEAs. And then I would also hope that we could actually walk the walk and make this a local control issue. And the LEAs that have space to supervise and personnel to supervise will do that. I think as Cindy Davis pointed out, and those that don't won't be required to by rule. And the fee waivers can be worked out similarly between LEA and provider without top-down direction from the state. I favor that local control idea. Thank you.
Board member Davis.
Thank you. You know, I'm one of my favorite people about this. I think I'm not ready to pass this right now. I certainly could support something if the committee wanted to go back and revisit, and not just the committee, but systemically as a whole. I visited with Superintendent Robbins, who has extensive experience with this in Juab District and now has moved to Canyons, and he's a self-proclaimed maverick in this space. But he said the reason they started doing, really moving toward online in the first place is because they had a low assessed property value and didn't have the and in growing enrollments didn't have the capacity to bond for space in their buildings. And so sort of systemically, this started out as something different than maybe now what we're talking about, and having, something else be the driver. And he said, what is the driver at USBE? And I am asking this question to the board. If you're going to vote for this today, then we need to be able to articulate what is our driver. He said, we're spending millions and millions of dollars. How do we manage it when it gets bigger and bigger, as it will? How do we manage it? And is this board rule the way it's going to be managed long term? And he said, it's still going to be going strong. How do we integrate and weave this into our portrait of graduate vision? He said, if it's about brick and mortar and requiring supervision, does that sort of change things? And what is our long-term vision? How does it fit in with what we believe? And he said, this is a talk at the table that's not going to go away. And the bottom line is, if a kid comes and says, I need a place to work, we should find a place for the child to work. But we got to figure out long-term what it looks like. And I think it needs to go back for more study. I do think there needs to be some clarification on school fees. I don't think it should be fully dropped in the lap of the LEA. I keep hearing educate choice is messy and expensive. And yes, it is those, but now we're taking the messy, difficult, figure it out yourself part and putting it on the LEA. Could that be shared, or can we brainstorm and think outside of the box on who's going to provide the fee waiver? And then what does the space look like? And if it is, as we say, then let's clarify it more in the rule with an IE or a definition. This can be one period on A days or what have you. So there's some kind of an understanding when you read the rule that I have choice of what this looks like. Also, is there a cap? Is it like a COVID thing? Do we add into the rule that when we get to 2%, we revisit? When there are 100 kids trying to get into the library at Granite High, that's a 3% of 3,000 if it grows to that point. Then what does it look like? I just think we need to do more, and I think this is an ecosystem, and you can't say I'm supporting one child in an online class, and the people who support it are child-centric, and the people who don't care only about organizations, because the very schools themselves are there to serve students also. So I think we need more work. I'm not going to vote for this today. I would support moving it back to committee so that we can actually create a vision that we all can get behind and move forward, and that our LEAs don't feel. I heard from 5 local board members from Tooele, Garfield, Davis, Canyons, and Provo. I heard from 2 superintendents, 1 high school principal, 1 BA, all from different districts. This is an issue that's a big deal, and we should be able to have more of a voice. And to Chair Huntsman's comment about why they didn't speak up, one said to me, he didn't speak up because they're trying to gear up for the reporting requirements are so onerous. They feel like they need to save their bandwidth to fight that and not anything else. So anyway, I'm going to vote against this time, but I think we owe it to the future of this to actually revisit it and do it right and more thoroughly and carefully.
Board Member Earl?
I think this speaks to what earlier I had asked about. I'm sorry to hear that. It was really good too. Nothing?
Go ahead.
Sorry. Oh goodness. So I'm hoping somehow we're able to collect some feedback on this, because I guess that's what I'm looking for a little bit. I haven't heard from any of those districts, or others even. So it's hard to base that on, on that kind of feedback, or there probably is information out there, or people that have concerns, but other than someone calling someone, there's not really anything to look at for this. So I hope either at the end of this year, which is kind of an odd year anyways, that we can really look at that and see what worked, what didn't work. And then I hope there's plans for that kind of monitoring or that kind of information collection.
I'm going to quickly interject my thoughts on this. I'm in favor of this rule change. The rule change basically says that the home LEA or the school of enrollment would establish fee waiver eligibility for the decision-making point of do I provide access to a computer. And so this, to me, if you talk about what's driving me on this, it is access for more students to this program. Students who don't have access, not every district has a one-to-one program and they need to sit in a computer lab. It's access to students who historically have not participated in this program, and it has the benefit to benefit students who have not participated in this program. And so I am in favor of this. I don't think the requirement is over the top. I think as the program grows, if it does become 100 students, that's 100 students that decided not to enroll in another class. that students can't just take unlimited numbers of classes through the SOEP. If they're enrolled in 8 credits at their high school, they can't even participate. They have to unenroll in something in order to participate in this. And so to me, it's about access to students who historically have not had the opportunity to do this. It's not a perfect fix to that access, but I think it's a positive step in the right direction. Board Member Nielsen?
No, I retract. You said everything I was going to say. You're the glory hog. Congratulations.
Okay. Board Member Belknap?
I would like to just say one thing, that the committee has been working on this for 6 months. This isn't new. This hasn't been that there wasn't opportunity for people to speak to this. And we put also in your backup the report that is there, that is required in statute, that has been going on for the last 5 years. And the report is in your backup about this program, just for your consideration there as well.
Yeah, I see no further hands. Board Member Davis, go ahead.
I just think it's so hard, because there are a couple of schools in this selected group of schools that we're talking about that are doing really good things for kids. And there are a couple of schools that aren't, quite frankly, based on the only data that we have currently. And man, I think we need to proceed with caution. I think we need to be more clear in the language about what eventually this could look like and how they're supposed to manage it. And I think we need, I do think we need clarity. I think there should be more of a division on the fee waiver. That's what I heard back from the Chartered Association today too. They really just want clarity and want to know about the fee waivers. I just think we need a little more time.
Board Member Bolter.
Thank you. I was just going to call a question.
Okay. The motion is to end debate. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. It's non-debatable. Please vote on the motion to end debate. That motion passes unanimously. Okay. The motion before us is to approve R277726 Statewide Online Education Program SOEP Draft 3 on second and final reading. Please vote. Board Member Thorpe? Okay, that motion passes. Please don't take your vote down, please. The ayes are Board Members Cummins, Earl, Belknap, Newell, Nielsen, Huntsman, Bolter. Sorry, is there one missing?
Well, it's 7-7, isn't it?
Well, it's showing up as 8. Oh, Board Member Marsh is an aye. Sorry, he's down below.
Oh.
Board Member Marsh is an aye. Did you get that, Lorraine? Do I need to repeat it?
No, I got that.
Okay. Okay, the noes are Board Member Lear, Hanson, Thorpe, Gravitt, Cannon, Davis, Haynes. Okay, Chair Belknap, if you want to continue.
You see me? I went. That was our last item. Thank you, Chair.
That concludes the Finance Committee report.